Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cleveland Sports Bros podcast. I'm Matt alongside my brother Nick. Nick, how's it going today?
Great. We got some exciting Cleveland baseball and football to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. So, unlike last week, we're excited to talk talk about a Browns victory rather than a loss. Definitely a big improvement. Still a lot to work on, I would say, but step in the right direction. And you definitely like to work on things coming off of a win rather than a loss. So I was definitely happy to see that Deshaun Watson looked pretty good. Again, across the board, I think things we all, the whole team needs to work on, but um, definitely saw some improvement on the field.
Yeah, and diving right into that game, what I saw from Deshaun especially was there were scenarios where he was able to stay calm in the pocket and escape compared to the game against Dallas. And uh, he started off 7 for 8 on, I believe, a 16 play drive to get eventually he got the rushing touchdown, and it was the only touchdown for the Cleveland Browns, along with some big plays by Justin Hopkins and the main wide receivers that stood out, Jerry Jeudy and David Bell, who unfortunately got hurt.
Yeah, and it sounded like he was done for the year, unfortunately. So next man up there, it sounds callous, but you know, hopefully David gets better and can be come back next year. But players are going to have to step up, and so looking forward to seeing how they can navigate that. And obviously, it's going to be a challenge, but hopefully they can do it. And one thing I definitely liked was the way the defense played, especially. We saw some improvements on the offense, but 18 points isn't a lot, and even two of those were from a safety, which we'll talk about. But Myles Garrett had a second strip sack. He has one in each game now. And Nick, tell us a little bit more about his, defensive lineman teammate, Alex Wright.
So we know from last season, Alex Wright uh, rotates on the opposite defensive end occasionally with Zadarius Smith and sometimes even Agbo Agarankro, but Alex Wright, I heard, had 4 sacks, one in each of the final 4 games last season. But heading into, fast forwarding back to week 2 of this year, uh, Cleveland with the lead punted the football with Corey Bojorquez, who had you can call it luck sometimes, but on a beautiful punt that downed him on the 1 yard line. And I was a little surprised that Jacksonville opted to pass on first down from their own one, but that's the move they made, and they paid the price with Alex Wright uh, getting through the O line and tackling him in the end zone, forcing Cleveland to Jacksonville to punt the ball back.
Yeah, and again, not at all to take credit away from Alex. He obviously made a great play, but I remember watching and saying out loud that I couldn't believe that Miles was one on one in pass protection there. And while Miles didn't get at the quarterback, he got some pressure, or at least helped collapse the pocket. So, sacks are very often team efforts. And even though Miles didn't get there, I liked what he had to do on that play too. So yeah, questionable decision, I would say, but they were getting a bit desperate. So they had to march down the field to try and win the game, but it started with the punt that was awesome, and then ended with the safety. So definitely great job by the defense, and like you said, Corey as well.
And uh, some key moments, not necessarily moments, but players I like to point out from the game briefly. From third best to first, in my opinion, I'd rank third most improved player is Deshaun Watson. Although he didn't have a touchdown pass, he didn't turn the ball over, and he passed for 186 yards. And he had Cleveland's only touchdown while rushing on the ground. Second, I'd like to point out Jerry Jeudy, who had 5 receptions, 73 yards, and he has 1 touchdown on the year. That came in week 1. And Alex Wright, who we just mentioned, I'd say is the #1 player for the Browns in that game, who came up with the clutch safety in the dying 2 minutes to uh, give the Browns, I wouldn't say seal it, but a little more cushion, 5-point lead, and the defense did their part.
Yeah, and they have the Giants coming in this week. It is in Cleveland, correct?
Yes.
So they should take care of business. They're favored in that game. Obviously, though, it is the NFL, so anything can happen, but take care of business and get out with a win, and hopefully no injuries this time around. But of course, unfortunately, that's part of the game. So we'll be sure to bring an update after the game this week. But moving on to the Guardians, they're playing some good baseball as they close out the season, or move towards the end of the regular season. Great win last night against the Minnesota Twins. Nick, why don't you give us a recap of what happened?
Yeah, so last night, uh, from the first inning to the 8th inning, the Guardians were playing from behind. Uh, uh, Matt Cobb, Matt Boyd was on the mound, and he generally has provided some strong starts for the Guardians ever since they traded for him at the deadline. But yesterday he didn't have some of his best stuff, and even Stephen Vogt said, these things happen. It's baseball. You're not going to get a, you know, ace performance from every pitcher night in, night out. But uh, he had allowed 3 runs through 2 2/3 innings, and it wasn't mostly because of the runs he allowed, but the Twins were fouling off countless pitches, and his pitch count was climbing into the 70s before the 3rd inning. So Vogt decided to go to the bullpen, and the bullpen, like we've seen so many times, did its job and did not allow a single run for 7 1/3 innings, and that includes a clutch save by Emmanuel Clase that tied the franchise record at 46 season saves, tying Jose Mesa. We'll see if he can top that in one of the next 11 games. But offensively, it was Kyle Manzardo, the young rookie DH that came through after Josh Naylor had doubled. And I made some jokes with some friends, how devastating that must be as an opponent playing in Cleveland, knowing you just gave up the lead and you've got to face their all-star closer.
Yeah, it seems like when Classic comes in, it's that if they have the lead, at least when he comes in, might as well kiss it goodbye. If you're the opposing team, he's been that good. So again, hopefully he can stay healthy and just keep doing what he's doing. As far as and just one more thing on the game last night, Manzardo's home run to win it was just awesome. You could tell how excited he was. Josh Naylor threw his hands up, on second base, and then the celebration afterwards. I thought it was just going to be one of those games where we let the game slip. We had bases loaded. I think in the
7.
the 7th inning, was it 1 or 0 outs? But nonetheless, we got 1 run, but weren't able to get more out of it. And you just thought, well, here's another night where the offense just didn't quite get the job done, and then Manzardo absolutely crushed that ball. And it was great to see that, and he could be an important player on this roster as they move towards the playoffs. So that was awesome to see. But in terms of the playoffs, so right now, they're almost a lock for the playoffs. They haven't clinched it yet. They could as early as tomorrow. But that will come with time, I'm sure. Currently, as far as the division goes, again, that's not locked yet, but it's pretty close to it. They have a 5-game lead on Kansas City and a 7.5-game lead on Minnesota. And one more thing I want to point out that maybe people don't know about seeding in the playoffs is if the Guardians have a top 2 seed, so the 1 or the 2, I think they're a half game back on New York right now for the 1 seed. But if they're top 2, they get a first round bye. So they'll skip the wild card round and go straight to the ALDS, which you really want to have, especially with the team that, their pitching could use some rest, things like that. They're currently, I think it's 5.5 games ahead of Houston for that. And they do play Houston in the final 3 games of the season. So hopefully it's a non-factor at that point, but it still could be, and that's something we're going to keep an eye on, and we'll probably be discussing on our next episode. But they're in a great position for the playoffs right now. Again, it's not locked, but it's almost certain they'll go, and I would say almost even certain that they're going to have a first round bye too.
Yeah, very exciting stuff. And one more stat or star moment I'd like to point out from last night's individual game was Emmanuel Clase. We know he's been hot all year. He literally has video game numbers as far as ERA and strikeouts, etc. But I saw when he came into the game, he fell behind 3-0 on the first batter. And kind of like when I said, imagine being the team that just gave up the lead. In this case, imagine being the batter against Clase. You have a 3-ball, no strike count. And then the next 3 pitches, you get struck out. What do you think of that?
Yeah, he's just so dominant, and opposing batters know that too. So I think there's big intimidation factor, and yeah, it's just going to be tough for any batter. So that's what I think. And look, if he's healthy, I think he'll continue to do it, or at least I hope so. And he'll be very important for this playoff run. We know that. So definitely be thankful we have guys like him on our team to be able to perform the way he does on the field. And looking forward to keeping this thing rolling and bringing you more news and recaps as we head to the playoffs. So thank you again, everyone, for listening. You've been listening to the Cleveland Sports Bros podcast.